Ontario is a land that refuses to let its shadows rest. For every haunted inn or forgotten ruin we uncovered before, there are more hidden behind locked doors, buried in stone tunnels, or echoing through the spray of waterfalls. These are not just places on a map. They are thresholds where the past still bleeds into the present. Tonight, we return to Ontario's haunted history, into prisons, battlefields, and places where water itself seems to weep. Step carefully, because the deeper we go, the darker it becomes. 1. Brockville Railway Tunnel, Brockville. Deep beneath the streets of Brockville runs the first railway tunnel ever built in Canada. A mile-long passage carved into the rock in 1860. Today, it stands as a tourist attraction, illuminated by colorful lights. But those lights cannot chase away the shadows that have always lived here. The tunnel's history is soaked in hardship. Workers labored in brutal conditions, some killed in cave-ins and accidents, their bodies carried out under the cover of darkness. Others claim the tunnel became a secret refuge for the desperate and the lost men who went in and never came out. Their voices, locals say, still echo in the damp air. Visitors describe hearing footsteps that match their own, pacing just behind them, only to stop when they turn. Some report the sound of whispers carried through the dripping stone, words impossible to understand, yet filled with dread. The air here is always cold and wet, the walls slick with condensation that sometimes seems to pulse like breath. The bravest claim to have seen apparitions, glowing figures hovering in the darkness, or a shadow that stretches impossibly long across the tunnel floor. Cameras malfunction, batteries drain, and the deeper you walk, the stronger the sense that you are being followed. Standing alone in the middle of the tunnel, with water dripping steadily from the ceiling, the silence presses in until it feels unbearable. Then just at the edge of hearing a voice calls your name. Whether you run or listen, the tunnel keeps its secrets. 2. Cambridge Mill, Cambridge. Along the banks of the Grand River stands the Cambridge Mill, a beautifully restored building that now serves as a fine restaurant and wedding venue. But beneath the romance and elegance lies a history that refuses to stay silent. The mill dates back to the 1840s, and with its long history of labor and hardship came tragedy. Workers died in accidents, and according to local lore, a young woman drowned herself in the river after being abandoned by her lover. Her sorrow is said to linger, wrapping the mill in an atmosphere of sadness. Guests and staff often report strange occurrences, footsteps on the upper floors, the sound of heavy doors slamming shut in empty rooms, and the faint sound of weeping drifting across the dining halls. Some say they've seen a pale woman in white near the water's edge, her form dissolving into mist as they approach. One particularly chilling account comes from a wedding party. As photographs were taken, a ghostly figure appeared in the background of several images, a woman in old-fashioned clothing, staring blankly at the camera. No one present had seen her. At night, the river itself seems to carry whispers, the sound of grief blending with the rushing water. For all its beauty, the Cambridge Mill is a place where joy and sorrow walk side by side, and where the past still interrupts the present. 3. Niagara Park's Power Station, Niagara Falls. Beneath the roar of the Great Falls lies a place where industry once thrived and now only ghosts remain. The Niagara Parks Power Station, built in 1905, was once a marvel of hydroelectric engineering. Its massive turbines and cavernous halls are silent now, but silence here does not mean peace. The station opened to the public in recent years, offering tours through its darkened tunnels and towering machinery. But visitors quickly learned they weren't alone. Guides tell of footsteps echoing in the underground passageways, too loud and too close to dismiss. Lights flicker in the deep chambers, revealing fleeting figures darting between the rusting machines. Some guests report a heavy sense of dread as they descend into the generator hall, as though the walls themselves are closing in. Others have felt a sudden icy hand brush across their arm in the darkness. The most chilling tales come from the mile-long tunnel that stretches beneath the falls. Tourists walking its damp stone path sometimes hear whispers carried on the rushing air, voices speaking in languages long forgotten. One legend claims that workers who died in accidents crushed by machinery or swept away by the water still linger here. Their shadows move against the walls, always just at the edge of vision. Stand too long in those tunnels, and you may begin to wonder if the sound you hear is water rushing or something else coming closer. 4. The Keefer Mansion, Thorold. High on a hill in Thorold stands the Keefer Mansion, a stately Victorian home built in 1886 by the influential Keefer family. Today it operates as a restaurant and inn, but behind the polished wood and fine dining, guests sense something far less welcoming. Locals say the mansion carries the energy of those who once lived and perhaps died within its walls. Visitors report phantom footsteps echoing across the grand staircase when no one is there. Lights flicker violently in empty rooms, and some guests claim their wine glasses have shattered on the table without being touched. Staff working late into the night often speak of strange occurrences. A figure in old-fashioned servant's clothing has been seen darting across the hallways, only to vanish through closed doors. Others describe the sensation of being watched from the upper windows, where faces sometimes appear in the glass, pale and motionless, even when the rooms inside are locked. The basement is said to be the most unsettling place of all. Cold drafts sweep through, carrying the faint sound of whispers. One worker swore he heard a woman sobbing just behind him, but when he turned, the room was empty. The Keefer Mansion offers elegance on the surface, but step too far into its shadows, and you may find the past still roaming its halls. 5. Prince of Wales Hotel, Niagara on the Lake. This Victorian jewel in the heart of Niagara on the Lake looks elegant and inviting. But beneath the chandeliers and fine dining lies a tragedy that still whispers through its hallways. During the War of 1812, Niagara was torn apart by violence. According to legend, a young woman was killed in her home, now the site of the hotel, when American soldiers raided the town. Struck down as she fled upstairs, her spirit is said to remain where her life ended. Guests staying at the hotel often report seeing her apparition, a woman in a flowing gown, who drifts along the staircases or appears suddenly in mirrors. Some wake in the night to find her standing at the foot of their bed, her sorrowful gaze fixed on them before vanishing into the shadows. Staff whisper of unexplained cold spots that move from room to room. Lights flicker, furniture shifts, and doors open silently in the dead of night. One housekeeper even claimed she was shoved by an unseen force while cleaning an empty suite. The Prince of Wales Hotel may welcome thousands of guests, but not all of them leave. Some seem destined to wander its elegant halls forever, their stories written in whispers and shadows. 6. Fort Henry, Kingston. Across the water from the Penitentiary lies another haunted giant, Fort Henry, a 19th century stronghold built to protect against American invasion. Its stone walls, cannons, and tunnels make it a historic landmark. But at night, history comes alive in ways no reenactment can explain. Staff and visitors speak of ghostly soldiers marching along the ramparts, their boots striking in perfect rhythm before vanishing into the fog. Guides on evening tours describe hearing drums and bugles, faint but unmistakable, echoing from the parade grounds long after the fort has closed. The lower tunnels are the most feared, narrow, damp, and lit only by lanterns. They seem to breathe with shadows. Tourists have felt icy fingers graze their skin in the darkness. Some report children's laughter echoing through the stone passageways, though no families were present. Others catch glimpses of a man in full uniform, pacing silently with a musket in hand, his face stern and unblinking. The fort also carries a legend of a headless soldier, said to wander endlessly in search of the body he lost in battle. Those who have seen him describe a figure cloaked in mist, his form outlined by moonlight, drifting along the walls before dissolving into nothing. Standing on the ramparts at dusk, you may hear it too, the steady beat of phantom drums rolling in the distance, summoning an army that never rests. 7. Kingston Penitentiary, Kingston. Its stone walls rise cold and imposing along the shoreline of Lake Ontario, once home to Canada's most notorious criminals. For more than 170 years, Kingston Penitentiary was a place of punishment, despair, and violence. Closed in 2013, the prison now offers tours, but many who step inside swear it has not been emptied. Visitors describe a suffocating heaviness as soon as the massive gates close behind them. Echoes of slamming cell doors reverberate through the corridors, even when no one is near. Guides whisper that shadowy figures are often glimpsed standing in the old exercise yards, fading away when approached. Former guards who return to the site admit to hearing voices calling their names in the same wings they once patrolled. Some claim the sound of shuffling feet follows them, even though the rows of cells are locked and silent. The most unsettling experiences happen in solitary confinement. Guests touring the isolation cells often feel a wave of panic wash over them, their hearts pounding as if they too have been trapped. One visitor fainted after swearing she felt invisible hands clutching her throat. Others say they hear muffled weeping in the darkness, echoes of prisoners who spent years losing their minds in those narrow cages. Would you walk those echoing halls after midnight, knowing that some of the darkest souls in Canada left their mark here, at Kingston Pen? The punishment never seems to end. 8. Albion Falls, Hamilton. At first sight, Albion Falls looks like a painting, a cascading curtain of white water tumbling over jagged rocks. Families picnic here. Hikers stop to take photos. But beneath the beauty lies a darkness that has haunted Hamilton for over a century. The falls have been the site of many tragedies, accidents, suicides, and, most infamously, the murder of a young woman named Jane Riley in the 19th century. According to legend, she was lured here and thrown to her death, her body shattered on the rocks below. Locals say her spirit never left. Those who wander the trails at night claim to hear the sound of a woman screaming, her cries swallowed by the roar of the falls. Some hikers report seeing a pale figure in white drifting through the mist, only to vanish when they try to approach. Others feel the unmistakable sensation of being watched from the cliffs, even when they are completely alone. There are stories of sudden, unexplained slips, visitors feeling as though invisible hands pushed them toward the edge. Cameras malfunction near the base of the falls, and photos sometimes reveal ghostly shapes in the spray. Stand too close to the rushing water, and you may feel it, the pull of something unseen, a force that doesn't just want you to fall, it wants you to join her. 9. Old Fort Erie, Fort Erie. On the banks of the Niagara River lies Old Fort Erie, a fortress that saw one of the bloodiest battles of the War of 1812. In August of 1814, American and British forces clashed here, leaving hundreds dead. The ground itself was soaked with blood, and many of those who fell were never given proper burials. The land remembers. Visitors to the fort describe an overwhelming sense of dread, as though unseen eyes follow their every move. Tour guides whisper that shadowy figures are often seen patrolling the rampart's soldiers in uniforms from another century, muskets on their shoulders, their boots silent on the stone. Cannons that haven't fired in 200 years sometimes boom in the dead of night, echoing across the river. The smell of gunpowder lingers in the air, and disembodied voices bark orders in accents long gone. Some guests walking the grounds after dark hear the moans of wounded men, begging for water, only for the sounds to fade when they turn. Inside the barracks, the chill is constant. Visitors report seeing spectral figures lying in the bunks, as though the fallen soldiers have returned to rest. And more than one person has fled after feeling a cold hand grip their arm, pulling them back toward the battlefield. Old Fort Erie is not just a monument, it is a graveyard, one where the dead still keep their posts. 10. Ottawa Jail Hostel, Ottawa. At first glance, it looks like just another quirky hostel where travelers check in and out. But those who sleep here quickly learn this is no ordinary place to rest. The Ottawa Jail Hostel, once the Carleton County Jail, still carries the misery of its prison days like a second skin. Built in 1862, the jail was notorious for overcrowding, disease, and harsh punishments. Men, women, even children were crammed into its tiny cells. Executions took place here, the final hanging carried out in 1946. And though the building was transformed into a hostel in the 1970s, its ghosts never left. Guests report waking in the night to find a heavy weight pressing down on their chest, as though an invisible figure were standing over them. Footsteps echo in the corridors long after the doors are locked. Some travelers claim they have seen faces peering from the old barred windows, only to vanish when approached. The most chilling stories come from death row, now converted into hostel rooms. Visitors describe hearing rattling chains and whispered prayers in the darkness. Some have woken to find their blankets tugged, or the sound of sobbing just inches from their ear. And in the courtyard, where the gallows once stood, there are those who swear they've seen the shadow of a man with a noose around his neck, still swinging in the night air. Would you dare spend the night here, knowing your bed once belonged to the condemned? Ontario never runs out of haunted places, from blood-soaked forts and prisons to waterfalls and tunnels that sing with sorrow. Each of these sites carries stories carved into stone and water. They are places where the living meet the restless, where the past refuses to stay buried, and where the shadows are never far behind. So, if you find yourself wandering Ontario's haunted corners, remember this: some places let you leave, but they don't let you go. That's all for today. If you enjoyed this chilling journey, don't forget to like, comment with your favorite haunted location, and subscribe for more weekly videos from the shadows.